You're listening to I Love It When, and I'm your host, Mo. I'm a speaker, coach, and connector. You're in the right place if you're looking for some inspiration and you're ready to truly embrace who you are. My intention with this podcast is to help you see that you are so much more powerful than you realize. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of I Love It When. I'm your host, Mo, and today is another Solo with Mo episode. I have been feeling called to do more and more of these, and I started to record this yesterday, and I had to stop and just take a break and let the day pass and try again today because it's interesting. I am super comfortable interviewing people, and it's much easier for me to be interviewed. And so doing these solo episodes, while I always have something to talk about, there's always some sort of topic, I definitely feel the need to fill every inch of air. And I know that that's not necessary. And I also know that every time I speak, something I say hits someone in a way that is meaningful or has an impact. And so I'm really going with the flow today. And I know I've mentioned this in other episodes, but today I really, truly am going with the flow. I have a couple things that I know I want to cover and talk about. And I just want to kind of let you into my brain a little bit. Which could be interesting for some of you, and kind of let you know what I think about on a regular basis. And then I also just threw a poll and a question up on my Instagram today and said, hey, what questions do you guys have that you'd like me to address in a podcast episode? So if there's something that you'd like me to talk more about, please email me, mo@iloveitwhen.org. I would really love to take your questions and include those in future episodes, because I think I'm supposed to do more of these solo episodes and continue to kind of let you in on how I think and how I process, but also be available to ask questions and answer anything that comes up. So the first topic that I had in my mind that I wanted to talk about was being in flow. Being in flow comes up a lot when I'm talking with coaching clients, and it comes up a lot for me and just in my own life right now. And so I want to talk about a little bit about what that means, because it's not something that we're really taught or anything we learn about in school growing up. And being in an energetic flow is an amazing feeling. When I think about being in flow, it really, to me, means I'm not having to push or pull to do anything necessarily in my life. Things come to me with ease. And a lot of being in flow has to do with, I believe, being in alignment. So when I started to get more into alignment with what my soul actually wanted in life, that's when I recognized that things started to flow easier. It doesn't mean that life is always easy. It doesn't mean that hard feelings or whatever you want to call them, low vibrational feelings and emotions don't come up. They do come up. It means I'm actually in a spot where I'm able to address those feelings and feel them in the moment and recognize them and kind of be an observer of them and allow them to move through my body rather than stay with me. In the past, before I really learned about energy and how energy works and how feelings and emotions operate within our actual body, I would let things and emotions, feelings sit in my body for so long that it would create physical illness. So one example that I have of this is I was dating a guy who was really and truly just not meant for me. And after a couple of years, I noticed that I started to wake up at night with a really painful burning in my stomach. And I thought, okay, maybe this is an ulcer forming. Maybe there's something else going on with me. The only thing that would help was ibuprofen, which if you know anything about ulcers, you're not supposed to take ibuprofen to help those. It can actually make it worse. And so I actually went to the doctor and I got a colonoscopy, I got an endoscopy, and I got everything checked out. And they found some polyps and things like that from the colonoscopy, but nothing to explain this burning sensation that I was waking up with. And I was waking up with this feeling in my stomach anywhere between 2 and 4 a.m. for probably about 2 years. And so then I just went to a naturopath because at this point, I'm starting to look for any sort of answer I can find. And I'm really opening up to ideas outside of Western medicine at the same time. And so I went to see the naturopath, and she did some blood work. And in the meantime, I left to go teach a class on the East Coast. And while I was while I was on the East Coast and in the East Coast, I met with a psychic over the phone. And this was probably only the second or third psychic I'd ever met with in my life. But this was when I was beginning to explore just alternative ways of getting to know myself. I was looking for things outside of what I'd been taught because it was not enough for me. And when I get to this place where I want more information, I will open up to all sorts of different resources to see what feels right and what hits well. And so that's where I found myself with this psychic on the phone. And we went through this experience. So she took me through an experience of releasing this ex-boyfriend that I still was in contact with. So basically we were kind of like in this relationship, but not really, for about 4-5 years. It was a long time. And towards the end there was when the stomach aches were really getting very bad. And it was my body trying to speak to me. So she led me through an experience where I did a visualization and a meditation with her, and I let this person go and I cut cords with that person. And within 2 weeks, wouldn't you know, the pain was gone. I kid you not, it did not. The only time it has ever come up again, and this has probably been, I don't know, 6 or 7 years now. The only time it ever comes up again is if I'm having anxiety or stress about something. And so within 2 weeks, I was no longer waking up at night with that pain. And that's when I knew, okay, my body and my soul have been trying to speak to me through this pain. And this is when I really started to dig more into energy healing and different kinds of education and knowledge around how our body and our spirit tries to talk to us, because it's talking to us all the time. So being in flow and being in alignment means that I am listening to myself, I'm listening to my soul, I'm listening to my body, I'm listening to my higher self through meditation, through dance, through different ways of moving my body, through walking. I'm listening. And when I'm in alignment, I can then make decisions from a place of flow, because I'm listening to myself. I'm not letting anything outside of me influence me. And so that has been something that I've really been thinking about lately, because when you're living in from a place of flow and things are just coming to you, it is so much easier and pain-free. It's a pain-free place to live from. It doesn't mean that things aren't difficult, like I mentioned earlier, but I will have, for example, let's say I get a coaching client come to me and I have my introductory discovery call with them. And while we're chatting, I get the distinct feeling somewhere in my body, usually it's the pit of my stomach, that I don't think we're a good match. I could be in a place where I could really use that money for my next month's bills. That's typically like what the journey has been like over the last 3 years, is I get this opportunity that comes up, but it doesn't feel like it's in alignment with my soul. And it could be either that it's not in alignment for me, like I don't feel like I can help that person, or they're not in alignment with me, like their values and the things that they believe in or that they want to get from coaching isn't what I do, or isn't, like, it's just not a good match. And so when I'm coming from that place of flow and pure intentions and that following my heart, that means I have to tell that person, like, I don't think I'm the person for you. I don't think I'm the coach for you. And so being in that flow just means you're acknowledging your inner voice and allowing things and experiences to come to you that are meant to come to you. And you'll know when you're listening to your body when something's meant for you and when it's not. And so that has been truly my focus over the last 3 years, is getting to a place where I understand what the flow feels like for me. And then I'm also like releasing the fear at the same time, so that I can follow the guidance and not allow a scarcity mindset or a lack mindset to affect my decisions. The other part about flow that I want to talk about is masculine and feminine energy. So one of the first things that my mentor and my Mangles told me when she met me was, Margaret, less doing, more being. And I was like, what does that mean? Because I was coming from a place where I was used to going, doing, making it happen, doing whatever the work was that I knew I needed to do to get where I wanted to be. So for example, when I did my first retreat, I put in countless hours. I went above and beyond when it came to contacting people to get attendees to come. Now, some of that is good effort, right? But I was far too far, way far over the line in the doing category. And so when I was thinking about how to explain this masculine versus feminine energy, I was thinking about, so the masculine's more of the doing energy, going, going, going. The feminine is more of the being energy. And every human has both masculine and feminine energy within them. And when they are balanced, that is when we are also in flow. That's another way to recognize flow. And so I pulled up a website here that I want to mention that helps to explain this concept, because I just felt like I wasn't going to have the words to explain it in the way that I wanted to. And so I want to quote this website, pausmeditation.org. And this is an article called Balancing Our Feminine and Masculine Energy by Raina Malloy. And so you can search that on Google to find it. But she talks about how we all have a mix of masculine and feminine energy. We need both in our daily lives. Masculine energy is characterized by doing and achieving and is molded by logic and reason. Catch that? It's molded by logic and reason. When you think about Western culture and you think about the United States and you think about how our society has operated, this is how we've been operating, by logic and reason and this masculine energy. We have not been in balance for as long as I can remember or look back at history and see. The feminine is more intuitive, oriented towards receiving and allowing, and characterized by being. And so within her article here, she has this great little graphic that shows feminine and masculine energy. And so the feminine energy is more about receiving, intuitive mind, internal, feeling, empathetic, vulnerability, creativity. And when it's out of balance, you might feel powerless, manipulative, needy, oversensitive, codependent. Whereas with the masculine energy, which is more doing mode, giving, logical mind, externally focused, projective, focused, achieving, planning, confident, goal-oriented, and driven, when that is out of balance, you might feel more aggressive, confrontational, controlling, micromanaging, or competitive. And so when these energies are balanced, she shares that we experience a greater sense of harmony and fulfillment. And when they're askew, we might feel more friction and stress in our everyday life. And so I wanted to share that blip from her article because she says it so perfectly. This is how I began to recognize that I was out of balance in my life. And so over these last 3 years, I have really been focused on allowing my feminine energy to come back into the picture for me. And a lot of that has to do with trusting and having faith in the universe, God, whatever you choose to call it. For me, I like to call it universe and God interchangeably. This unseen energy. And if you don't believe in a God, but you believe in this energy, this thing that you can't see, that's also another way to think of it. So when you're sitting, the hard thing about shifting from a masculine to this more feminine energy and finding this balance is that, I mean, I definitely grew up in this society where it was go, 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 do, do, do. The more you achieve, the more you're recognized. And so I have had a really difficult time shifting out of that mode. What does that look like? When I'm sitting around and doing nothing, that I feel lazy when I'm doing that. I feel irresponsible when I'm doing that as an entrepreneur. I feel like, well, if I'm not doing anything, how can I expect anything to happen in my business? And so it's been a really interesting journey to explore this. And what I'll say is something that I've been thinking about these last couple of weeks as I've been really, truly in receiving mode. It has been to recognize that I have taken so much inspired action over the last 10 years. I haven't really actually seen the fruits of that yet because I haven't allowed myself to receive it. And so it doesn't mean that these days or these weeks of over the summer, I didn't do anything. It's a very different perspective. In the past, let's say during your typical week, maybe I would have taken 10 big action steps. Now, I'm usually only given maybe 1 to 2 big action steps a week, if that. And so it feels weird, right? It feels like I'm not doing enough, and yet I am. And so what I'm recognizing is that by slowing down and pacing myself and calming myself down and calming my nervous system by using meditation, by working out, by moving my body, by moving my energy, however it feels good. Some days it's like a 5-minute YouTube dance video. Seriously. Other days it's a 5-minute breathwork video. Some days it's a 45-minute walk outside. I always need to get outside and walk and touch the trees. That's definitely a part of me grounding my energy. But whatever I can do to teach my body and thus my mind that it's okay to move at a slower pace, that's what I've been focusing on. So that's a lot of the conversations that I have with myself in my head that I kind of wanted to let you in on, that I think might help some of you, because now that I'm starting to recognize this more and more in myself, and I've really been working on embodying this, I'm recognizing how many of my clients and the people that I meet out in the world, this is a huge part of the work that we have to do as a society, is slowing down, regulating our nervous system, and recognizing that there's something out there that wants to work with us, that we're not doing this all on our own. And I think in a society where we've been taught to be fiercely independent and that it's all supposed to come from us, we need to reprogram our brains, right? And it's a journey. So that's something that's been rolling around in my head. The other thing that I wanted to talk a little bit more about was energy healing, because I've explained it in some of my previous episodes, like with Marianne Stanzel, who's an energy healer. I kind of had her explain, how does she explain energy healing? And then I explained it a little bit in some of my Instagram stories or posts, but I recognize I just want to keep giving you all the opportunity to hear about it, because sometimes I think I've talked about it and it was just like a snippet or something. So here's how I conceptualize energy healing from what I've learned about it. I've been a certified energy healer now for just over a year, and I've been experiencing energy healing, well, my whole life, but not with intention until probably the last 4 or 5 years. So the way that I think about it is everything is made of energy. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see I'm holding up this pen. This is energy. This water is energy. This water bottle is energy. And our emotions are energy as well. And when you have an emotion, if it is not allowed to flow through your body, it can sometimes get stuck in places. So if you imagine that this pen that I'm holding up, for those of you that are listening, I'm holding this pen up. If I hold it up near, like, let's say my lungs or my upper chest area, and let's say that it's anger, I get really angry at, I don't know, an insensitive comment that somebody made to me out in the real world. That anger, I feel it, but I don't want to let it go. And I let it sit in my body. I just let it sit there and fester and get bigger and bigger. And it chooses to sit in my chest for some reason. Oftentimes it's my stomach or my chest where different emotions get stuck. If I continue to allow that anger to fester and sit in my chest or my stomach, it will actually cause physical ailments. In the instance of my stomach, when I referenced that story earlier about my ex-boyfriend, it was literally causing me pain. And maybe perhaps in the end, it would have eventually caused an ulcer, or it would have caused something else to develop in my stomach. What my body was trying to do, what my soul was trying to do, was to signal me and say, hey, Margaret, something's wrong. Something's off. You're doing something that you don't really want to do. And it's making you sad. It's making you angry. And you're not acknowledging that. Hey, listen up, listen to us. And so when I started to understand this, I began to talk to more energy healers and learn about what they do. And so essentially what they do is they help to funnel energy through your body, and they can help you to move stuck feelings and emotions through your body, which can then have an impact on your physical, mental, emotional, sometimes financial and spiritual health. So it is fascinating, and I can't recommend it enough. And I think for those of you that listen to my podcast or are interested in the work that I do, you wouldn't be here if you didn't have a curious and open mind. And so I commend you for just being open to listening to this, because if I can tell you, nothing else has changed my life more than my curiosity and open mind. There are a lot of things that we're told to fear in this life. There are a lot of people who live by fear. And so it can be really difficult to choose to live a life that's not ruled by fear. When in our educational systems, in our government, in our leadership, There are fear-based people and fear-based leaders everywhere we go. Having an open, curious mind and trusting myself, trusting that when I run into a person or when I run into a practice that does not align with me, that feels fear-based or feels dark or just feels like it's not okay, I will know, I will have the ability to discern that it's not okay, and I will move away from that. So trusting yourself, trusting that when you need help or you need something else in your life, it's okay to go research. It's okay to go look at new avenues of learning. It's okay to look outside of your faith, outside of the way you were raised. I can't recommend it enough. And this is, I think, part of our journey of being human is realizing and understanding that there are so many different ways to approach things that we may never have been taught growing up. And so it's our job and responsibility as humans to really go after those things that could bring us more peace. And that could ultimately, because when we bring ourselves more peace and more healing, that's how we're actually healing the world and healing the planet. So I wanted to share that about energy healing because I wanted to make sure that if you guys ever have questions about it, you can ask me about it. I now actually do energy healing sessions myself for clients. It could be a part of your coaching with me, or it could be a separate session. I can do them virtually or in person. But I have been in touch, and just like all of you are, whether you recognize it or not, you are all capable of being your own best healers. All I'm doing as an energy healing is creating the space for the energy to flow with you. You can do that for yourself. And so it has added such value to my life. I can't even begin to tell you how much it has helped me to gain awareness of how my body speaks to me so that I can catch problems faster. I'm a very proactive person. And so I would so much rather hear my body and address it before I need to go see an outside voice, an outside physician or person about it. The other thing I wanted to talk about today too, that's kind of in line with energy healing, is I wanted to talk about oracle cards, psychics, and my full moon ritual that I do. It's a lot of different topics, and I love it. This is how my brain works. I skip around to all these different things. And so I'm actually recording this podcast on the full moon, the second full moon in August, the supermoon, also known as the blue supermoon. And so I want to talk about some tools that I use to help me gain trust in myself. One of the things I wanted to say today about this topic around energy healing and psychics and oracle cards is one of the things that really changed my life the most was when I first met with a psychic and a medium. Boom, drop the mic. I find it so interesting that so many people are afraid to speak about this, and yet they use it on a regular basis in their life. This happened back when I did the FHA 203K loan for my first duplex that I bought too, and then I did it with this one. And I did a $240,000 remodel on this house. And after I first did it, the first house I did a $25,000 remodel. And with this loan, the FHA 203K loan, you work that money into the loan so that you can do the remodel when you don't. And I don't, because I didn't have cash on hand to do this. After I finished that first house, I was talking to everybody about it because I was like, why isn't everyone speaking about this? This is something that can change people's lives. Why don't more people know about this? And I feel the same way about energy healing, about psychics, about oracle cards, about everything that I've learned in the world of spirituality. I'm like, why don't more people talk about this? And it's because people have gotten shamed or in the past killed for it. Because again, it's when you work and you are in a world around people who are working off of fear, fear is very powerful. Fear is a powerful motivator. And I am intentionally choosing to operate from a place of love with my life, constantly battling fear in myself and fear in the world, because I choose not to let fear run my life. Okay. End of my side rant. So the reason psychics and mediums have played such a critical role in my growth is not because they have predicted my future. I think any good psychic and medium will share with you that they can't predict your future. They can't. Why? Because of free will. We have free will. And so many people I know are afraid to see psychics or mediums because they don't want to have their future told. Well, let me tell you, it's not going to be told. What you will get is a myriad of ideas, and options opened up for you. So I felt like I had this like tunnel vision on my life of like what was possible. And when I started to meet with psychics and mediums, it was like my tunnel blew wide open. And all of a sudden, there were no walls, there was no ceiling to what I could do and what was possible. After meeting with a psychic or medium, it's totally up to me on what I feel led to do. So I've had some people tell me before, like, oh, you're going to build this, let's just make it up. Like, you're going to build this business around, I don't know, tea leaves and crystals. Well, I love tea and I love crystals, but I don't really feel led to build a business around it. So they saw that as a possibility for me, and it doesn't feel like it's in alignment with me. And so I wouldn't take any inspired action towards that because it doesn't feel good to me. And so then it doesn't happen. So I want to reassure you that if you've never seen someone before, and just PS, like, everybody is psychic and everybody is a medium. It just depends on how open you are to using your gifts. The more you open up to what's possible in this world, the lighter you will feel, the more expansive your world will grow, the more you'll be able to address any pain you have to help you heal that pain and move through it. It's been incredible. Now, oracle cards are different from tarot cards. Oracle cards are to me more like affirmations, and I was first really attracted to angel oracle cards because growing up Catholic, I think I was also just kind of used to and comfortable with the idea of angels. And so I ran across a guy named Kyle Gray on Instagram a few years ago, and I was immediately attracted to his work because he works with the angels. And he also has just this unbelievable energy that's fun-loving, creative. He just loves fashion. So he loves to dress up. He loves shoes. So I loved having this, for me, he was a role model and still is, of someone who can be spiritual and like clothes. Like, so oftentimes I think we have this idea in our head that certain people have to be a certain way. Like, if you're spiritual, then you can't be into material abundance. Actually, no, you can, totally. And so Kyle has just been, he's so fantastic. And so his oracle decks feature angels, and I was immediately drawn to them. So that was the first oracle deck that I got. And the way that I played with it and utilized it in my life was I just pulled a card every day. Hey, what message do I need to hear today? That would be the question I would ask out loud or ask in my mind, and then I would pick a card. And because I picked cards every day, I began to pay closer attention to what was happening throughout my day. What did it do? It caused me to have even greater self-awareness and to be even more in the moment, in the present moment, in the now, which is the goal for all of this. Because by being in the moment, you're getting the most out of this time, because there is no past or present, there is only now. And so oracle cards have done that for me. And it's also helped me to, again, get to know myself better, to confirm how I'm feeling about certain things. So let's say I have an opportunity come up where a company wants me to do a retreat for them. In the process, if I'm not like a full body, yes, I want to do this, I will draw cards about it. And all I'm doing is getting validation from myself. But I have really needed that. I'm actually, not actually, I think you guys, if you've followed me now for a while, you probably know I'm a very logic-minded person. And so it's taken a lot for me to get more into my feminine energy, like I was talking about earlier. And it's also taken a lot for me to just trust the unseen. My spirit guides and my grandmother is my number one spirit guide. I think she's in charge of the team. I know she's in charge of the team. And so they're around me all the time and giving me signs all the time. And I have required a lot of signs. I have required a lot of communication because I don't see spirit with my own two eyes. And so I have needed and desired a lot of confirmation that what I'm doing is right, that they're actually here with me and that they're actually supporting me. And so they have given me countless signs, so many so that I will need to write a book about it. And so through oracle cards, they also bring me signs and confirm things for me and just validate that what I'm feeling is right, because all they're trying to do is get me to trust myself. And so if you haven't yet checked out oracle cards, those are something that I often recommend for people who are just beginning their journey, because I found it really, really fun, a really fun way to play with my intuition, and also just very validating when I'm looking for, if I'm feeling low and I'm feeling like I need some hope and some confirmation, I go to my oracle cards. And in line with that, I often use my oracle cards when I'm doing a moon ritual. So over the course of the month, we have the new moon, the full moon, and right now, like I said, I'm recording this podcast episode on the night of the day of the super blue moon at the end of August here. And I like to use the moon because it's actually just a great regular monthly reminder to set intentions and to clear my energy and to think about, what do I want to be over the next 30 days? What am I focusing on? It's a little bit like setting goals, but less like what we've been taught about how to set goals. I'm not particularly a fan of goals. I'm more a fan of intentions now, which are more about a way of being than they are of doing. And I find goals to be very much oriented around doing. So for a full moon ritual, for example, today I'm going to bring out my oracle cards. I'm going to bring out my little black burning bowl where I will burn. Basically, I write anything out that I want to let go of, any limiting beliefs that I want to release. So what I'm focused on right now is releasing any anxiety that does not belong to me, that might belong to actually my lineage up on my mom or my dad's side, because feelings and emotions and ideas can actually get passed down through DNA as well. And so I want to release anything that does not belong to me so that I can remove it from my landscape now, so I don't risk making decisions again from an anxious, scared place. And so that's what I'm going to focus on removing today with the full moon. So I usually will write down some limiting beliefs. I'll burn the limiting beliefs in my little fire safe container, and then I'll pull oracle cards or tarot cards around whatever my intention is for the month. And then I will also usually put that intention into a crystal. And so again, if you're on YouTube, you'll see some of my favorite crystals. This is a fluorite. Actually, sorry, no, this is fluorite. It's this beautiful green, blue, and purple crystal. And then this one, I forget what the name of it is. It's a turquoise crystal, beautiful one that I use for speaking. And what I'll usually do is, depending on what the intention is, I'll put it like on my windowsill and I'll let it charge under the full moon with the intention that I'm infusing into my next month for 30 days. So that's my full moon ritual that I wanted to share that I typically do, but there's a variety of different activities and things you can do. And again, you want to find what feels right to you, what feels good for you, because ultimately that's actually all that matters. Drop the mic right there. Feeling good about what you're doing, that's actually what I focus on the most in my business and in my personal life. Totally contradictory to what we're taught, right? And it doesn't mean that I don't have self-discipline or there aren't times when, hey, I don't really want to meditate, but I'm going to do it anyways because I know that it serves me well, even if I only do it for 2 minutes. Hey, I'm popping in for a moment to let you know that if you're interested in working with me one-on-one in a small group, or you'd like to attend one of my upcoming retreats, please reach out or add yourself to my email list. You can go to iloveitwhen.org and scroll to the bottom where you'll see there's a spot to sign up. I also love to speak, teach, and create experiences for small, medium, or large-size companies. If you know someone that I should know, please connect us. I'm looking to utilize I Love It When to create global change, and that will require collaborating with all of you. You're all so much more powerful than you realize. Remind yourself of that today. All right, so moving on from that topic, I had shared also at the beginning of this episode that I had put a couple questions up on my Instagram story and asked, like, were there any topics you guys wanted me to address in a future podcast episode? And I had a couple questions come back to me. And so I wanted to share those and just kind of riff off of that. And again, if you have questions that you would like to know more about, are there certain parts of my business you want to know more about? Are there topics that I've talked about that you like to know more about? Is there a different topic that you want me to talk on, or a guest that you'd like me to have? Please message me anywhere or email me or text me and let me know. I would love to be able to be a resource to you guys, because the podcast and my social media is one of those ways that I offer basically free resources to people. If people aren't able to coach with me yet, or they are not sure if they want to coach with me yet, this is one of those ways that you can get to know me through this platform. So do not hesitate to ask for things, okay? So one of the questions that came back was how to be kind and patient when a client is totally wrong that you're working with. How to be kind and patient when a client is totally wrong. And so when I think about this, and I think about there have been times, absolutely, when I have worked with a client who couldn't hear me. And what I mean by that is sometimes someone has certain limiting beliefs or ideas or emotions that are, it's almost like they're earmuffs. It's almost like these headphones that are covering my ears. It doesn't allow the information. There's something about that that doesn't allow the information to get through to their brain to really understand what it is we're trying to get at. So when I find myself in a conversation with a coaching client and they're not completely understanding me, I utilize my Fierce Conversation skills. Fierce Conversations by Susan Scott is a book that I talk about often that I think I'm actually also going to do a podcast review on it to just share my favorite tidbits from it, because I was certified in the Fierce Conversations methodology because it has changed my life. And I don't say that about much. Like, I do energy healing, right? And the world of spirit. But Fierce Conversations has given me the tools to use in my everyday life to really better understand myself and other humans. And so whenever I find myself in a conversation and I'm not fully understanding, or the client's not fully understanding me, I go to questions. I go to curiosity. Can you tell me more about why you think that way? What led you to think that way? Where did you first learn that? And so when someone is not understanding me, or I'm sharing with them maybe a process that I used to sell retreat tickets or to build up my business, and they're not understanding it fully, or they don't see how it worked and why it worked, I go to questions. And curiosity, like I shared in my last episode, is really what fuels me when I need to remind myself to stay in curiosity and kindness and patience. I mean, I'm kind of a rare breed in that I'm in the top 2% of most patient people in the world, apparently, according to, I think that's the Myers-Briggs assessment that I've taken. But every assessment that I take, I mean, I'm incredibly patient. Did I say impatient? I'm patient. I'm patient in the past almost to a fault, because I have such deep love and such deep compassion for humans. Because when I look at someone, I have this ability to see someone's full potential. I may not see everything, but when I look at someone, I see all the good. I see so much, like so many good things. I see so many beautiful things. And because I see that beauty, I have like this added layer of patience, understanding that whatever trauma and whatever hurt they've been through has temporarily blocked them from being able to see this greatness in them. And so I have this unending patience that I've had to really work with as well, because sometimes I have to let people go. Sometimes I have to let things go myself if I don't understand them, or we just come to disagree. We're going to agree that we disagree, whatever it is. Sometimes that patience can hurt me if I'm not careful with it, right? So I would say what helps me is going to curiosity. And if at some point the client is still not getting it, that's when I choose to let it go and focus on something else. And if it's at the root of why they're working with me and it's clear that maybe I'm not the right person for them anymore, then that's when I would end the coaching relationship. And usually I'll say to people, hey, I don't think I'm the right person for you anymore. I think maybe what you are looking for or what you need, you can find with someone else. And I'll either usually try to find them another person that I think could help, or that they might hear something differently from, or they'll go on their way and they'll find another person. So thank you for that question. That's a really good one. The second one that came up was how to win well. And when this person asked this, I wrote back and said, hey, can you explain a little bit more about what you mean about how to win well? And they said, winning poorly is that hustle and beat someone else. Winning well would be that energetic confidence because we facilitated win-wins and everyone feels good. I don't know for sure, but I have a hunch that you do. That's what she wrote. So how to win well versus winning poorly. Winning well would be that energetic confidence. Yeah, I mean, I think you said it well when you responded to me. I think winning well for me means having personal integrity and doing what's best for myself and that other person. So I'm really good at building trust with people because I believe that building trust is also part of how we're going to heal the world. And like I said earlier, there are so many people and things around us that promote fear and work based off fear that we need to push twice as hard with love and trust. And so to build trust, one of the number one things I do is I follow through no matter what. And if there's ever an instance where I haven't followed through or I haven't done something, it's a really random mistake on my part because I will put reminders in my phone, reminders in my calendar, even if it's just to follow up with someone and say, hey, I got your message. I saw your request. I can't do it right now, but maybe later on down the line, I need to say that to them. And so when I promise things to myself or I promise things to someone else, it's very important to me that I follow through on that bit. So that's part of winning well for me is my personal integrity in whatever's going on, whatever's happening. Now, the other part about this is that when I first fell into real estate, I was totally surprised because I never thought I would work with salespeople. I always thought salespeople were quite manipulative, and I vehemently hate's a strong word, right? But I really, really dislike manipulation so much. And so when I first started working with salespeople, I thought this is not going to last. I'm not going to be here long. And then I recognized, oh, there are good salespeople out there. There are people out there who really actually truly want to educate and help people have a better life, attain the home of their dreams, attain a home, period. And so I recognized that I could actually do a lot of good with my pure intentions and with my social work background and with my desire to help people in real estate or in any sales industry. This was a really valuable attribute. And so I think coming at it from that place of you have pure intentions and you want the best for the client and you want the best for yourself. And a lot of that means being truthful and honest with both yourself and that person. And so I love having conversations with clients before we work together, whether it's a coaching relationship or a retreat or a workshop I'm going to do for a team or a company or a community. I'm very open with people about the content of what I talk about and what I do. But people still you don't really know until you've been at a class of mine. Because vulnerability and transparency and being able to create a safe space for people to truly be themselves is my superpower. And it's also my passion and my love. And so I think winning well truly means you have the highest and best in mind for everyone involved. And that when there's an obstacle that comes up, and I'm thinking of, for an example of, I had a retreat or a workshop, a 3-hour workshop with a company that was on the East Coast. And so it was over Zoom that they chose to have it. And I had an agenda. I always have an agenda for these workshops. And we were about a quarter of the way through when we took our first break. And I was getting a glass of water and some more coffee. And I thought to myself, something's off here. It's like I'm having to pull things from people. People are holding back. I can tell the energy is off. People are not in this. And in order for me to feel like I've really done the best work I can do and really served the client at their highest and best, I need everybody to participate in order to make this happen. And so after the break, I came back and I was just very open with everyone and then frank. And I said, hey, it feels like there's like this elephant in the room that we're not talking about. And I just want to open up this space to all of you to share how you're really truly feeling. How is this going? What are you needing more of? What's happening? And after that, we proceeded to have a conversation for like the next hour and a half about how people were truly feeling. And it was not on my agenda. And I had to let the agenda go because I recognized that this was actually more important. This was actually what they needed to have happen more than any agenda. And if I could facilitate that conversation and be someone to help ask questions and help people feel safe enough to speak, then I've done my job. And that was a win-win to me. That was a true win-win. And I had to trust myself. I had to be very much in the moment, right? Because I could have ignored that feeling. I could have ignored the feeling that everybody was feeling it. When you feel it like that, you can feel that energy. When the energy in the room goes down, or when it's just kind of stagnant, and it's kind of like, oh, what are we doing here? I could have ignored that, but I knew that I couldn't, not if I was really and truly doing my job. The other thing that this reminds me of is I had spoken with someone who does a lot of work in really large corporations. And she had mentioned to me that when she first started doing her work, she would go into corporations and she would say, okay, here is this workshop and these sessions that I do on leadership. And here's what the content looks like. And the folks at the corporation would say something like, oh, this looks great, but could you shift it a little bit more to, because we really just need to focus on some leadership skills, like listening. And I don't know how they described it, but it was not the work that this woman does. And so she shifted her work in order to fit what they thought they needed. And she knew it wasn't going to work as well, but she wanted to do what they wanted. So she went ahead and did the workshop the way that they wanted and included what they wanted to have. And as a result, the impact was not seen in their company. They were not able to see the fruition or the ROI of her work. And so they ended up calling her back later and said, hey, we actually want you to come back and do exactly what you had in mind, because your work obviously works. It's worked with other companies. And so we need you to stick to your plan. And that was confirmation for her, basically, to really trust herself and trust that the work she was doing was right. And so I think all of this plays into this winning well. And, I was talking about this with my partner this morning, Tom, before he left for work. And he said, hey, look at history. And I said, okay, what do you mean? He said, look back at the US and how we've created a culture where winning, what winning looks like isn't really winning. Winning and the way that we've been raised to see winning now is accomplishing the most, having the most money, people not always being fair or equitable, and that's not winning. So I think we can look back at history and we can see that's not the way we want to continue. If we all want to succeed and we all want to create a world where people are treated with love and compassion and have opportunity, then we all need to re-examine what winning looks like for us. And it's not about hustling. It's not about achieving. So I hope that helps a bit. I think that winning for me really does go back to doing what's the highest and best for everyone involved, even if at some time it's at the detriment of myself. Yeah. Thank you so much for that question, for both of your questions. I loved it. I loved it so much. So for those of you that are listening, please feel free to comment on any of these topics that I covered today. Obviously, I did not have a problem speaking on these. I would love to hear what you think about the energy piece, about the oracle cards, about working with the moon. One other thing I'll say about the moon too is one of the reasons I got intrigued by it was the science behind it. So, the pull of the moon, the gravitational pull of the moon affects the water in our oceans, right? It's the ebb and flow of the tide. We, as humans, are composed of, I believe, more than 70% water. So wouldn't it make sense that with the cycle of the moon, our physical bodies, and thus perhaps our emotional bodies, would be affected by the water and by the moon? That was what got me to start looking at the cycle of the moon and the cycle that I'm on as a female, and started to look at how are these cycles affecting my feelings and emotions during the month, because they do. So I'm going to leave you with that. If you all have any other questions, please feel free to reach out, comment on this video. Please rate and subscribe me on the Apple Podcasts app. It really helps a lot to get this podcast exposure to new audiences and new people that I've never met before. And thank you all for listening.